Hello and welcome to Regent Park, the past, the present, and the future. My name is Titi Lola and I will be hosting this series. This show discusses the history of the Regent Park area. We will be sharing stories from lived experiences by former and present Regent Parkers. Join me as we learn about the old and new Regent Park. Do not miss it. Welcome to Regent Park, the past, the present, and the future. My name is Titi Lola, and I'm your host for today. The aim of this show is to discuss the changing nature of the Regent Park area. Here with me today are two former and current residents of the Regent Park area, Jackie Rose
Hi.
and Elisada Douglas.
Hi.
You're both welcome to the show today.
Thank you.
So we'd like to discuss, the changing nature of Regent Park, and I would like to start with you first, Jackie. I understand you've been in the area for so long, since the 80s.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that was like for you?
Well, growing up in the Regent Park was interesting. We were here since the early 80s. I spent my elementary school and high school life here with my mother in her home up until the new development. At that time, we were first generation Canadian, so we had to deal with a lot moving into the Regent Park area because it had a very different face at that time. So going to school with my neighbors and so on, we had to learn to get along, to say the least, and it was very interesting.
Lovely. How about you, Elisada? You've been here for so long. You
Yeah,
grew
I've
up
been
here.
living in Regent Park here from 1976.
Wow.
I raised all my children in Regent Park here, and they went to school in Regent Park. So far, I had a wonderful time in Regent Park. I lots of friends. It was a home, and I was very proud to be a resident in Regent Park. And my children, them have a lot of friends in Regent Park. So.
Lovely. That's so long. Elisada, I must tell you,
Yeah.
I wasn't even born. My mom wasn't even born yet.
Well, I'm still living here.
Yeah. Yes, I would like to find out if there were any peculiar stories that you were fond of growing up in the Regent Park area.
There were a lot. Because of how the area was designed, you didn't have to really leave the area unless you were going to like the grocery store, the mall, or so on. So from my home, I would be in the area walking to the daycare or walking to the school. And along those paths were wading pools and so on. And I remember just hanging out by the wading pool. As I said, I had my elementary and high school here, so I remember calling on my friends or going to my neighbors, hanging out by the wading pool, walking around and feeling safe at night because we were still within the community. And the thing about growing up in the community is somebody knew you. So we were very free, if you will, because we had the safety of being within the, well, not the walls, but the walls of the area because of how it was designed. You would have to see an old picture of the area to understand what I'm saying. It was sort of like our own gated community, if you will.
Right. How about you, Elisada?
Well, look, the children them, I did not worry about them going to work because all the parents that was living in Regent Park, we all know each other and we try to protect each other, all the children. So if I come in and your child is outside, I'm going to say, what are you doing here? Inside. And the rest of the friends, which is families, will do the same thing. And the old friends and relatives, we all grew up together in Regent Park. And we call each other mom, mommy,
That's
or
so sweet.
sister or brother.
Right.
And that's the way we grew up in Regent Park.
Sounds like some really fun memories.
Yes.
Yeah. And what are the things that you would always remember about growing up there? Other interesting memories?
I remember because my mom had one, we went from the building to the house, and in that house she was there for 31 years in that one house. So the outside of the house, I remember when we first got there, we had a bar around, because we had a huge front yard. We didn't get it back, but we had a really big front yard. And so we started with a bar around the front yard, which we'd walk on, and my friends would meet me there. We'd sit on that. Then a few years, maybe by the time grade 7, no, a few years longer than that, they got rid of the bar, and then they changed like the stoop. So, but we still had somewhere to meet. And I just remember cutting that lawn and the tree in the area. When you grow up in one house for 31 years, I wasn't there that whole time, but visiting my mom through the back, you see a tree and the growth, and I have pictures with just even with the tree and so on. It's interesting that you asked me that now. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. How about you, Elisada?
So far, as Jack said, this is reality, and this is our home that our children grew up into, and that I enjoy growing up into with my children them. And we had a wonderful time in Regent Park. So far, I'm going to say that inside of my heart, sometimes I miss the old Regent Park, because I do not see my friends them
Anymore.
like how we used to be together. And as Jackie said, Mom moved down to Richmond Street, and I'm still in Regent Park. My children them is all over the city now, so I felt like I'm alone. So that is a part of my missing my old Regent Park. And for me, I get involved in 1979 doing volunteer work at Regent Park Resident Association, Teen Association, and I really enjoy all those meetings. I also get involved in sitting on the board, hearing that Regent Park is going to develop, and we wait and wait and wait until about 20 years later, one day the first building went down. I felt like I was into the lake, and there was a young lady put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Elisada." I felt like I want to cry for sadness and cry for happiness. I said I felt the same way. And the third person came and we hugged each other, because it takes 20 years before reality and the dream come true.
Wow.
And the two ladies beside me said, "This is my building to take it down." You know, this is my building to take it down. But it is for a good reason why the old building go down and the new development started. So far, so good.
Wow. That must have been really emotional, like a really emotional time for you.
I felt like I was into a lake and the water over my shoulder, and it's like I can breathe, and I thought I'm the only one that felt that way until Edna came and touched me and said that's the way I felt. And then Rose came and said the same thing and said, "This is my home to take him down, Elisada, my home." 20 years later, the dream came true.
Well, I'd like to add to that. Like, I did grow up here, and I left years ago, and this is with the past. Coming a few weeks ago, coming into this building, it's the first I noticed what had happened to my former house. And standing there and seeing it, and then trying to remember what it looked like, it was a shock to me. 'Cause I happened to be walking by, and I actually saw when they broke down that front door, the one St. Bartholomew. I was standing there and I saw the bulldozer hit that, and that was about 7 years ago. But I haven't had to walk this way because my mother had moved to another resident. So passing it a few weeks ago, it was very emotional because I cannot see where the old daycare, there was a daycare before it became the community center, and I was actually at that daycare. I couldn't see anymore where the wading pool was. I couldn't see where my friend and neighbor was, where your bachelor was, where the path that I took to get to, now it's called Nelson Mandela Park School. So that truly was a shock to my system, and I was surprised that I actually did shed a tear, because I realized I could never walk through the neighborhood and show my children, hey, this was I couldn't even see it. And I walked that whole straight path, and it really took a moment for my mind to plot out where everything is. That's how different the area was. The only thing that I had as a sticking point is that St. Bartholomew Church, because obviously that's in the same spot.
Yeah.
And again, a tree that my friends and I had taken so many pictures in front of for so many years. That's obviously still there, but it does, you don't think you'd be emotional about something like that, but it did shock me that I actually did, I did cry, but just for the sake that it's gone. And if I didn't pressure myself to try to remember exactly where everything was, that would be gone too. Save for a few pictures in my teenage years we took all on the stoop and in the area, but it is emotional. It's emotional.
I can understand that. Going back, to growing up, what were the issues you believe the residents were facing?
With a lot of racism. This is, again, as I said, it was early 80s for me. First generation Canadian, so my mom had emigrated here just like before me, a few years before me, and then we're in Regent, and at that time it was a very different scene when we came. And there was a lot of resistance, a lot of fights with my older brothers and the young men that were in the area. They didn't want us in the area. There were meetings at the schools and so on. I could just say in my elementary school pictures, you go from seeing just myself as the one face of color in junior kindergarten to having at least 5 of us by grade 8. Like, that's a big change in the area. If you look at just the classroom pictures that I had from junior kindergarten to grade 8. So we had to deal with that, and it was us, as most of us first generation here, working with each other, learning how to get along, because hey, this is different, we're here to stay. And then by the end of that, what is that, like a 10-year period, we were all learned how to get along. So we were all enmeshed, but in the beginning there was a lot of conflict and so on. And I remember that very clearly as young as I was. And it did make it hard and a little bit stressful. But again, having the safety of my neighbor a few doors down, when him and my mother met, they had grown up in Jamaica in the same area. So it was things like that kind of kept you safe otherwise. But yes, I remember that. And we had some really great teachers at Nelson Mandela Park School, because not only were they teaching us, our bookwork, but they were teaching us how to get along, how to express ourselves without being violent. And they were learning how to deal with our parents, because again, this is the different cultures and so on. It was a lot, but I wouldn't change it, because it makes you a stronger person. You can go anywhere and just fit right in. And deal with anything, because we had to grow through so much and actually teach our parents how to deal with this new system. And it's a different school system even altogether. They're going from the imperial, the English system to here. It was a lot. It was a lot growing up, but I wouldn't trade it. It was good. Yeah.
The old Regent Park was, had a few stigmatizations. A lot of negativity that came with that was associated with those that lived in the area. Elisada, what were the issues that you believe were the residents of the Regent Park area faced? Did you have any personal experience with people outside of the Regent Park area?
I don't have okay, honest, yes. At my workplace, in the streetcar, I will take on anyone I heard talk about Regent Park. Lots of time I go to work and I heard people pass remarks about Regent Park and Regent Park this and Regent Park that. I alone, I'll take them on. I said, Regent Park is my own. You're not living in Regent Park, stop criticizing Regent Park. I'm in the streetcar, and I saw a young lady once, she was saying that, oh, this is a Regent Park. I said, this is Regent Park, and Regent Park is bad. Why are you on the streetcar driving through Regent Park? And she shut up.
And what are the kinds of things they say?
Because she was saying Regent Park is a bad place, and Regent Park, everybody talk bad thing about Regent Park, and so on and different. And I was listening to the conversation, and I just turned around and said, what are you doing in Regent Park in a streetcar? You shouldn't be riding through Regent Park. And those are stuff that people talk about Regent Park all the while. But I get to understand wherever you go and live, there's good, bad, and ugly, and the difference is all over the world. And I will stand up and fight for Regent Park. And I told my children them and other children, be proud of who you are and be proud of where you live in. You are Regent Parker. My great-great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they born Mount Sinai Hospital, came back in Regent Park. And I had about 14 of them. And they are Regent Parker, and I said, this is your home. This is your community. Stand up and fight back for your community. Be proud of your community. And one day something happened. I happened to working. My supervisor called me and she said, Elisada, could you do me a favor? And I said, what? She said, could you go home with a doctor, just have an operation? Could you go home and be with that doctor? Because he wants to leave the hospital. I can't find nobody else to go away from you. I said, oh God, I'll try. And I'm very much glad that I went. That doctor and the next doctor that came to visit that doctor came from Stinky Park, Sumac Street. And he said, Elisada, do you know Stinky Park in Regent Park? I said, yeah. He said, that is where I grew up. I said, you're kidding. He said, no, I chew my paper and ride my bicycle, and that's where I get my pocket money. And I become a doctor. And I teach this doctor you're looking after now. And I said, you sure? He said, yeah. And he's a Chinese person bought that store at Sumac Street and Shooter Street. I said, I know it's Stinky Park, don't it? And then I get to know the lawyers them from Anday Street that came from Regent Park, and I got a little book like this that was written, and I lent it to somebody. I did not receive it back. And that's about Regent Park. And I'm very proud to be a Regent Parker. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And I can tell anybody about Regent Park that way.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, is there anything you'd like to
Yes. Well, growing up, I guess, the stigma was that it was, first of all, that most people were on welfare, which was not true in my case. My mom had worked for the city of Toronto up until her retirement, QP 79. Everybody was on drugs, which is not true. Everybody was an alcoholic, which is not true. Everybody just, like, all the stigmas that they had. I was just wondering who these people were, or that the girls were this, or the guys were that, and so on. And here I was being, I was raised by my mom, and she was very strict, and I just knew my stoop I was lucky and felt happy that I was able to walk over to North. So this stigma that everybody was just like freely living and on drugs or high or whatever, I don't know where they got that from, or that we were stupid or we didn't get anywhere. I don't know who those people were, because I went to school here my whole life. And we had some fantastic teachers. Yes, they had to deal with, as I said, some social things that were different, and that's just the cultural difference when we first got here. But this, like, you know, putting kids back a year because they just came, you know, when our siblings came, they tried to do that, but my mom was a strong advocate against that, and we fought that, so they stopped doing that after a while. But as for growing up in Regent, you know, when you're getting into dating years, I did say East of Young. I did not say Regent, only because I did not want that stigma placed on me, because I know what people think and I know who I am. So I did not say, yeah, I'm from Regent. No. I was from East of Young. And yeah, that's why I laughed when she started to speak and so on. But it does, you know, people wanted to fight you. Elementary school, when you had your sports teams, they wanted to fight you because you're coming from Regent and all of that. And it was just ridiculous to me growing up. It was ridiculous, and I never involved myself in it. And I always believe it's not where you live, it's how you live. That, like, and who you are as a person that
That's
determines, you know, it's not the area or your address, but you, just you.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to thank you both for being here, sharing your beautiful stories, and, you know, inspiring us with your beautiful stories. This is still the Regent Park, the past, the present, and the future. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be right back.